This is Jamie with Bar Eye. In this video, we're going to take a look at how you can assess the amount of inventory you have on hand and what you're counting to see if there might be opportunities to trim down what you're holding at your bar. And the specific reason for this video is that a client has reported that inventory counts are currently taking them more than 3.5 hours, and so they have a motivation to try and figure out how they can make inventory counts happen faster. We're all about that because obviously nobody likes to active counting. So what we're going to do here is look at 3 different ways to assess this, which is to look at the scope of your inventory, the scale of your inventory in terms of how much you have on hand, and then also the volume of different products to decide if there might be opportunity to slim down inventory in various different metrics. So let's start here on the reports editor and click on the products report. And then we can look here and just see the number of products you have here. So in my last count, these guys counted 211 items. Most of our bars have between 150 and 200. So one opportunity would be to think about, do we really need the number of products we have on hand? I would look here and say that perhaps 55 bottled and canned products or 134 liquor products might show an opportunity to reduce that down a little bit. So that's really the scope, as in the amount of selection you have. Obviously, you have to have everything once behind the bar and then a second place minimum backed up for when you run out. This bar in fact has I think 2 or 3 different bar setups, and then you also might have additional backups for high volume products. So obviously the less items you keep, the less things you have to count, and that's one way to make improvements here. Moving on here, I'm looking at the audit report, or the previous count audit report, and what we're looking at here is the size of the counting map. So this is tricky because if you have a big bar with multiple different outlets and full bars stocked, you're going to have a big accounting map. These guys, just to assess it, we like to be able to count 500 lines per hour. I've moved to the end of the counting map here so I can see that on their most recent count, they've got 1,300 count lines. So my expectation here is, divided by 500, it should take them just over 2.5 hours ideally. And so probably some storage, organizational, keep things in the same place, and maybe even doing some pre-counting of inventory before inventory day could get them closer down to maybe 2.5 or even 3 hours. And also obviously the counting map, you probably can't change the layout of your bar, but again, if we reduce the number of products we stock, it would reduce this down a little bit. Sticking on scale, or the amount you have, another thing we can do here is move to our commentary report here on the summary section of reports, and then look at our weeks on hand here in the table at the bottom. So this 3.2 means this bar currently holds as much inventory on hand as they're using in 3.2 weeks. We like that to be below 4, so this bar is doing a good job on that, but there's always room for improvement, and so I probably would say beer is looking good. One thing would be, could we reduce the amount of liquor we have on hand? That might be challenging if we're buying and benefiting from case discounts, but that would be another area to consider. And then finally, we've looked at scope, scale, and now I'm going to look at the volume of individual products. So if you want to decide maybe a few items to cut down, it's useful to be able to see how much of each product you're using. I wanted to show you how to navigate to here. So if you expand the products menu, this will go red, click on vessels, and now you've got a full list of all the items you've had in hand recently. Let's do this for bottled beer. So we'll click up here and filter this for bottled beer. Click apply. And then a trick here, anytime you see these arrows in the report, you can click. I'm going to double click here and it will show me the highest volume products. And if I jump, say, to the 4th page, I can then see these items, these par settings. At the moment, my par settings, I can mess with them here. If I click on this, pars are set to be 14 days worth, the amount you use every 14 days. So we set this to 1 week's worth. And then we do need to toggle to make it wake up, and you can then see how much of each product you're using a week, and maybe say, if we're not using a full half case every week, maybe we don't need to have that, in which case we'd need our top 24. Or if you said, if we're not using at least a quarter of a case a week or a 6-pack, then that would get us here to this. The cucumber sour here is using a quarter of a case, so a 6-pack a week, but all these other ones are below that. So there's just some tricks to assess the number of items you have, the size of your counting map, and the volume of each product in case you wish to slim down and therefore reduce the amount you have to count and therefore the time it takes. As always, thanks for watching, and if you have any other questions we can help with, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you.